Hey, what up YouTube? It's your boy Tom over here. This is actually my very first YouTube video that I'm about to post out there. Basically, it's a tutorial of one of my favorite dishes to make. It's a mixture of a Japanese cuisine with an American edge. So in this video, I'm going to teach you guys how to make flank steak sushi. Okay, so let me show you guys what I'm working with right over here. These are my tools for the trade. I have my bamboo mat right over here, my 3 lemons. But I'm actually going to be using 2. The third one there is just to be fancy. I have my white onion, my green pepper, my red pepper, my seaweed, my medium grain rice, which I really wanted to get a short grain, but unfortunately they didn't have that at the supermarket, and the star of the show, flank steak. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to be marinating the steak, and I'm going to be using my soy sauce, my Worcestershire sauce, I don't know if I even said that correctly, and my balsamic vinegar along with my minced garlic. I mean, I could have usually just do the regular garlic and just crush it up, but for some strange reason, I just think it tastes better with the store-bought brand. And along with the sushi, I'm going to be using my mozzarella and provolone. I know it's not freshly grated, but still I like the way it tastes anyway. And my sesame seed to top it off. So for the first step, what I'm going to do is marinate the steak. Okay, basically I have my goods right over here. When you mix all these ingredients together, it should be plenty of marinade because the steak that I'm using is slightly less than a pound. So what we're going to start off with is a half a cup of soy sauce, a half a cup of balsamic vinegar, lemon juice, a dash of Worcestershire sauce, and a nice spoonful of minced garlic. Sit that in there, mix it really good. Like 30 seconds we should do it. And that should be whipped up really nicely in order for it to be made into a nice marinade. We have our steak right over here. Make sure you give her a nice good rinse. And there it is. Our marinated steak is all ready and good to go. So I'm just going to open up my fridge right over here real quick. And we're going to store her in here for literally 24 hours because you want the flavors to be nice and juicy, and you want it to like really sit into the meat. So it's very ideal if you actually flip it and turn it over every once in a while. It's not like a mandatory thing where you have to do it like every hour or so. You could turn it as much as you like, but just make sure like you do it enough times in order for the flavor to balance out. Okay, so upon marinating, I just realized that I made a tiny little mistake. I left out a prominent ingredient, and that would be this little guy right here. Dijon mustard. Basically what that does is it gives it like a nice little kick, a nice little extra edge in the flavor. So basically what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a teaspoon of that, we're going to rub it within the steak, of course inside the bag because we don't want anything to spill. And then we're going to just let it sit there for a little longer, and then we'll take it back from where we left off the next day. Okay, so the time has finally come to actually put this delicious meal together. So the first thing I'm actually going to attack are the peppers and onions, so I'm going to get ready to take them out, start dicing them up, so I can get that out of the way. It's actually my least favorite thing to do when it comes to making this meal, so let's go ahead and start doing that. Okay, so now that we got the chopping the peppers and onions out of the way, now it's time for us to prep up on our sushi rice, which I'm going to show you how to do right now. Before we get onto the rice, we're actually going to prepare our mixture to keep the rice nice and sticky. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to mix this all together just so we can get that out of the way prior to cooking the rice. So I'm going to show you how to make the mixture right now, and it's pretty easy. I mean, basically a 2-year-old can do this, so let me show you. What you will need is a half a cup of rice vinegar, 2 teaspoons of sugar, and 1 teaspoon of salt. I meant to say salt. Anyways, you know what I mean. So we're gonna give this a good mix. Let it blend really, really, really well. It's not gonna amount to much, but trust me, this is all you're gonna need in order for you to keep your rice together. I'm gonna pour this to the side. Okay, so I have the cold water running for like about a minute. Now I have my 2 cups of rice. I am going to go ahead and throw it into the pan right over here. There should be plenty of rice to make a decent meal. Don't worry about the excess. Just mix it in right over here. Now, basically what you want to do is you just want to get rid of all the starch. So I'd say about a 1/4 inch ahead of the rice is perfectly fine. And what you want to do with your hands is you just want to give it like a nice little massage, like what I'm doing now. And you want it to sit there for like about a minute, because what happens is if you don't let it sit in cold water long enough, like the rice is actually going to cling together. And there's a difference between clingy rice and sticky rice. You want sticky rice. You don't want clingy rice. Now that my rice is completely drained out, like I was saying before, I'm going to explain to you how the importance of the ratios over here. Now, since I actually made 2 cups of rice, I'm going to match that. You basically want to do like a 1:1 ratio. So for every 2 cups, you want to keep it a little bit above the 2 cup margin. Like basically what I mean by that is, I'd say like about a 1/4 of an inch. Like as you can see right over here, I have two cups of rice. I have 2 and almost 2 1/4 cups of water. And that's very important, because what happens is if you actually drown your rice in like too much water, you're basically gonna convert a 15-minute task into a 40-minute task. And like, you know, at the end of it all, your rice is gonna end up funny and clunky, and that's basically what you don't want to do. So you just want to keep things simplistic. This thing right here is gonna take like about 15 minutes. What you can do is I'm gonna turn on my stove. I'm gonna put it on high heat, and then once it boils, you're gonna simmer it down to low heat and let it sit there for about 10 minutes. So now I got my rice out. I'm going to grab my water. Just pour it a little bit over there. You're gonna see how evenly matched it is. All right, there you go. See, perfect. Just a little bit above where you want it to be. If you see something sticking out, that's okay. You can just mix it around a little bit. All right, we're gonna turn that on high. We're gonna keep that in for 15 minutes. This is actually bothering me, so let's put that down. No bueno. We don't want that. We don't want that. And let's turn her on high heat for 15 minutes. Now she's boiling like a beauty right over here. And now that we got her nice and hot, I'm just gonna take my lid. Pardon me. Just gotta grab that. And then we're gonna just top it off right over here. And we're gonna let that simmer down for another 10 minutes. So you want to take that high off and just keep it on low. Okay, we had this rice cooled off for like about 10 minutes right now. I guess it's safe to say to take off the lid. Okay, steam as expected. Basically what you have is like a flat surface of rice, very little moisture. And now is the time for us to put in our mixture of rice vinegar and sugar. So we're going to just spread that out a little bit. And now that we got that in there, we're just gonna go with a side stabbing motion. You don't want to mix it, because what happens is if you go like that, it's actually going to come up in clumps. You're going to have like very thick clusters, and obviously that's not going to work very well with the bamboo sheet. So what I like to do is, I mean, a lot of people recommend it too, is to just do like a stabbing motion. Just go like there, just keep going like that. gently. You don't want to do it like too heavy. Just go like that. Just go in there. Now that we got that nice and mixed in, we're gonna put the cover again and let that sit for another half an hour. By the time it cools off, you're gonna have a nice little sticky texture, and you should have zero problem creating your sushi when it comes to like that adhesiveness. We got the rice sitting good right over here, letting it steam up. Now it's time to take a look into our very well marinated flank steak. Okay, it's nice and brown just the way we like it. It's time to season it with salt and pepper and fire up this bad girl. Alright, the meat that we have in front of us is right on the cutting board. It's now demarinated. We're going to go into the process of seasoning it. Since we're dealing with sushi, we want to keep that raw factor intact. So we're going to be aiming for rare or medium rare, and we're going to go through this process right now. Now it's time to start seasoning. Okay, now it's time to start right now. I'm going to start off with a little cracked pepper. You want to cover that up really good. You don't have to cover up every inch, but I mean, just cover it up until you see about 70% visual all over it. So, I mean, we're going to do a little more cracks, and that should be good. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. We're going to throw our kosher salt right over here. Get a handful of that. Now what you want to do after that is just give it a nice good rub. Rub it like you're massaging it. I think it went a little too hard on the side, but still. Just give it a nice little rub. Now, if your hands aren't dirty, then you're not seasoning your steak well. That I can tell you for a fact. So let's just flip it over. Okay, we covered most of it. That should be good. Same process again. I know you can't see it. Nice little rub again. Make sure you get it all over. Now she looks good to go. So let's continue this process further. I am going to grab my olive oil and put a generous portion in there. Just get that unscrewed. I can only do so much with one hand. We're gonna get it right over here. Just pour it in. Nice decent amount. That's perfect. That's more than enough. We're going to evenly coat that out. Trust me, this is really all you're gonna need. Make sure you get virtually every speck of the pan, and believe me, you will. Just get that moving around a little bit more, so that way we have a flat surface. Okay, since you guys know now what I'm working with to cook my steak, I know what's inside the minds of the steak lovers. I know what you're thinking. I know exactly what you're thinking, especially to the ones that like to cook steak. I mean, I like to cook steak too. And the question that you guys have in your heads is, why the hell is this guy not using a cast iron? Well, I'm not using a cast iron for two reasons. One, the first reason is, unfortunately, I don't have a cast iron on me right now at the moment. And two, cast irons is a phenomenal tool to have in your kitchen, especially if you're cooking steak. It's actually built for steak. I mean, you can do other things with it as well too, but like, you know, a cast iron is basically, you use it in particular if you want your meat to be crispy on the outside and tender and juicy on the inside. I mean, that's great if you're having beef like as a whole and you have like a side of mashed potatoes, you have some peas and carrots or whatever. I mean, cast irons are great. But in this instance, since we're going to be mixing, since the beef is going to be mixed with peppers, onions, and cheese, in my personal opinion, I think like seasoning like the cast iron and doing all that work is just a little bit redundant. I feel like it's a little unnecessary, and it just cuts into time. So but the thing is, since we're doing it with a regular pan, it's still gonna be moist. It's still gonna be juicy. But what's gonna counterbalance it out is the crispiness of the peppers and onions that you cook alongside with it. So you're gonna get that diversified effects. You're gonna get that diversified texture of tender and crispy as soon as you bite into that sushi. So regardless of the fact of whether you're using a cast iron or not, if you're using like a regular pan, you're still gonna get the best of both worlds. So it's still a win-win. Okay, now that we got our olive oil into the pan, we got it on high heat. Like I said before, we don't have a cast iron, so the closest thing that I could get to it is just using this technique. I got the olive oil swirling around still. And now that, since we're dealing with sushi, I'm gonna keep the composition for rare toward medium. Now, if you want to keep it rare and as raw as you can get, my suggestion would be, considering that this is a regular pan, would be 5.5 minutes to 5 on the other side. If you want to keep it, if you want to do medium rare, you just add 30 seconds to one side and to the other. And if you want it medium, I'd say you do 6 and 6 evenly. It'll come out perfect. I tried that before, and believe me, that's a formula that never ever let me down. And if you want it cooked beyond that, then basically you should be ashamed of yourself. I'm kidding. Alright, let's get to work. Now the pan is smoking hot. It can't get more evident than that it's ready to go. So I'm going to take my spatula right over here and I'm going to scoop her up from the bottom and sit her down. Let's hear that sizzle. Oh, ay mommy. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's it. Oh yeah. Sizzle. Sizzle. I can't help it, I just love that sound. Okay, 5 minutes and 30 seconds have passed. It's time to flip her over, which I'm gonna do right now. All right. There you go. Ooh, got a nice charred look on the outside. Throw a stick of butter in there. And just let that melt and let it go evenly through the pan. Now, as you can tell, I'm using the ribeye technique. Now, there's different ways to go about cooking certain cuts of steak. I mean, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't treat a porterhouse like a New York strip, or you wouldn't treat a skirt steak like you would a ribeye. But I prefer the ribeye technique, honestly, when it comes to flank steak. I mean, just based on the fact that, you know, you could get that flavor, and you could use all the butter, and the juices would just sit right in. So flank steak works just as well in a cooking technique, just as well as a ribeye. So we're gonna let that melt right now and let it sit for like another 4 minutes, and I shall show you the finished product. Oh yeah, and by the way, don't forget to spoon it. You definitely don't want to forget to spoon it. Sorry, I have a shitty freaking spoon right over here. Just get that all in there. Just keep that nice and moist. Okay, so now my steak is just about done. I'm going to pop her over, let you guys see the finished product. Just let me drain her out a little bit. And there she is. Okay. Alright. Look at that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our leftover butter and let it drizzle on over here a little bit. want to get a little bit of that in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to let it rest. Okay, now that I basically drained out all the liquid and the steak is out, obviously, I'm going to spray this with a little bit of butter cooking spray, and I'm going to throw my vegetables on there. It's basically like the same way as if you were making like sausage and peppers. It's a very easy technique. You could hear it sizzle, and it doesn't even take that long. This will probably be done for like about maybe 2-3 minutes, and you'll still get that extra crunch like I was talking about earlier, and you're gonna get a diverse range of flavor from a little bit of spicy to sweet on here. So let's let that sit there for a little while. We're gonna mix our peppers and onions really well. It's almost getting to that crispiness that I want. Okay, so now it's time for the fun part. We are going to whip out our bamboo mat right over here, which we're going to use to roll up the sushi. Now, I can't stress out the importance of how to utilize this bamboo mat. What you really need to do is, and I'm pretty sure if you check on all the other YouTube channels, I mean, professional chefs, amateur chefs, typical run-of-the-mill people, they'll all tell you that it's very important that you wrap it around 3 times with plastic wrap. Yeah, just keep wrapping. Because what's gonna happen is if you do it like the regular way, what's gonna happen is the rice is gonna slip through these little spaces right over here, and when you actually roll it, the end result is not gonna look really too well. In fact, your sushi roll is actually gonna look crippled. So it's very, very, very important that you wrap this around a couple of times prior to preparing your sushi roll. Now, the first order of business that I'm going to take care of is cutting up the steak, and I'm going to go step by step how to roll your sushi. Okay, so let's go ahead and cut this bad girl right over here. I know I've been using the same knife for basically everything throughout this entire video, but honestly, this knife has been my best friend for quite some time. It's basically the jack of all trades. I basically call it my all-purpose knife. It's not my only knife, but it's my favorite knife. So let's go ahead and cut into this, and I'll show you what I'm working with right over here. So what you want to do is, considering that we're having sushi, there's 2 ways to go about it. You could cut it on the side as if you were treating it like a salmon or like a fillet. But honestly, I like proportion, especially when you're dealing with stuff like things that are symmetrical. I mean, like, let's take peppers and onions, and you're chopping it up, you're chopping it even, and you want to make a good presentation for your guest. So we're going to go about it, and we're just going to shoot straight, and I'll show you what I got after that. So there you have it. Look at those chunks. Okay, so now it's the fun part right over here. I'm basically going to show you how to roll it. I got my little seaweed over here. Basically the texture, when you take it out of the packet, you're going to see like a little bumps on the outside, and you're going to see bumps on the inside. Preferably what I like to do is I like to keep the rough part out, which is basically the outside, right on the top right over here. And what I'm going to do is I have my water mixed with another additional rice vinegar, half and half. Of course, we're not going to pour all of that on there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a glob of this, basically like a handful, and I'm going to put it over here. And I'm going to make the size equivalent that of the seaweed that I have. So let's just throw some of this in here. Yeah, this stuff is sticky. I mean, super sticky. Let's get that here. So dip your hand right over here and just rub it around. Just rub it around. That way it'll keep all the rice into place. I'm going to keep that nice and flat. Shape it up. Like I said, just lightly touch it. Lightly touch it. Just trying to shape it up just to make sure that it's nice and even. Okay, this should be enough. We're going to place our seaweed right on top of this. And basically what you want to do is you want to keep it toward you. So basically the trick to the trade is roll, pull, place in the middle, roll, and pull again. Now we're going to top it off with a couple of slices of my flank steak. You want to keep it on the side because presentation wise it's very ideal, because what usually happens if you keep it like tucked in, if you keep it tucked in like into the interior, whenever you cut it, the first cut that you're gonna get when you get to the corner, it's gonna look funny, and that's definitely not appealing to the eye. So basically we have two flank steaks right over here. I'm going to put a little bit of my peppers and onions on the side, just like that. And then I'm going to top it off with some cheese. Just put that on there. Oh man, this is going to be a fatty. This is going to be a fatty, I can tell. Just a moderate amount. Now, just what I'm explaining before, you're going to use nothing but your fingers. So just keep this tucked in, and as soon as you roll it in, you just press your fingers forward until you get a nice good roll. So here we go. Get everything nice in and go. All right, go in. We spread right over here. Spread it firmly, but not too tough. You pull, you go, you roll it again. Just spread it out, and then you pull. Sometimes it does cling to the wrap. And then you just flip it down right over here. And then you do the same thing. Just spread it out. Spread it out. And you have a perfectly evened roll. Voila! Now what we're going to do is we're going to top it off generously with some sesame seeds. Just rub that on there. I think I overdid it. But still, with a mammoth size like this, I mean, it does go hand in hand. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna transfer our roll right over here. Let me just dump that out. And we're gonna cut right in the center. Got my knife right over here. Cut it right down into the center. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Now, since these are fat pieces, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them 3 pieces. I want to get this out of the way. It's not good. So, press it forward. So here is my final presentation. Like I said before, I mean, I don't work under Gordon Ramsay, so you can't really expect much, but I tried to present it as good as I can. Now for the final test. Let's see how good it tastes. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's it right there. That is it right there. An awesome combination. And the fact that I drizzled chili sauce over it just made it much better. That was actually a last minute decision, I might add you. But yeah, I must say I'm quite proud of myself. I highly recommend anybody try this dish. Especially if you're a first timer trying to make sushi, and believe me, it's not as hard as you think it is. I mean, of course my roll wasn't perfect, but I'm getting there piece by piece. But you combine all these ingredients together, you are gonna create a masterpiece. Let's see the fries. Forgot to include that in my video. Just like regular fries, nothing special to comment. But yes, I will be enjoying this bad boy tonight. And that's all she wrote. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that's how you make flank steak sushi. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. To say the least, I really hope you found it informative and somewhat educational, despite the fact that I'm nowhere near being a world-class chef. So aside from that, feel free to drop a comment below, throw a like, throw a dislike, whatever you want. And this is your boy Tom over here, and happy eating.